Hey everybody, Dr. Diane, your Libido Doc. Today, talking about a very important topic, which is depression and sex and libido. And this is super important because it's a vicious cycle, right? I talk so much about these vicious cycles, and depression is one of them because what tends to happen is when we actually have depression, we have this medical situation where we're not making oftentimes as much serotonin and dopamine in our brain. Well, dopamine is a huge driver for libido, for sex. And so if we're depressed, we're not making as much dopamine, then we don't get motivated to have sex, right? Well, having sex actually helps to improve serotonin and dopamine. So some of the therapy can also help the depression, but the motivation is there because of the depression, or the motivation deficiency there is because of the depression. Plus, there's this thing, right, that happens when people go through depression and you're trying to explain to your partner what's going on. And then all of a sudden they're feeling maybe that you're not engaged with them emotionally and mentally and physically. And that can then sometimes lead to guilt. And that can sometimes lead to more depression. So how do we begin to get out of this vicious cycle? The number one way we got to get out of this vicious cycle really is to understand the cause of depression. And sometimes it's purely brain chemical, and that needs to be evaluated for, but sometimes there's actually different things going on in the body. So one of the things that's still not super talked about in medicine is that while we can have things arise from the brain as far as depression and anxiety and emotional imbalances, we can also have problems in the body that are driving the brain. So, for example, there's a condition that's not talked about very often. It's called pyroluria. It's really common if there's a family history of depression. And what this condition is where it's super simple. It's basically, genetically speaking, where people have this genetic anomaly where they make these things called pyrroles. And when we make them, the body grabs the zinc and the B6 and pulls these nutrients out, excretes them in the urine. And then all of a sudden, without these nutrients, we're not able to make things like serotonin and dopamine, these happy and motivation hormones. So we can have these abnormalities going on in the body, such as that. We can see abnormalities in the gut. We can see things that are inflammatory to the brain, such as toxins, mold, toxic metals. All these things can drive depression, right? And so sometimes it's easy to think, oh, we just need to work on the brain, and that can be important. But oftentimes it can also be, we need to understand what's going on in the body abnormalities that are actually creating the brain abnormalities. So sometimes it goes this other way, and it commonly goes this other way, body to brain. And yet we're looking at these two areas as almost separate still, instead of deeply impacting and influential of each other. So really, in getting out of the depression and the sex spiral that people get into, obviously helping your partner understand what's going on, the more we can help our partner understand that it's not about them, that it's not that we don't find them attractive, it's not that we don't find them loving, really helping them to understand as much as possible. And of course, we want to actually be taking action steps, because sometimes if it's we have a frustrated partner who feels like what happened to their partner that they loved, and all of a sudden we go through depression. It's like, oh my gosh, what is this person? What had happened to this person I love? And they're worried and they're concerned and all these things. The more we can, help them understand, but oftentimes the more we can also involve them in our action step plan around, like, hey, here's what I'm doing to help figure this out. This getting out of this, getting in, back into us is really important. And, because I'm depressed and because I'm not motivated, like, tell him that, like, I might need help in XYZ, C, XYZ, B, whatever, all these different letters. I might need help in all these different steps in getting out of the depression and figuring out the reason. And I would also encourage you to join my upcoming class. Join my 21-day Libido Jumpstart program that's coming up soon. It's exclusively for women. I only take small cohorts. And in that particular Jumpstart program, one of the things I'm really working to do is be available to answer your guys' questions. And we're going through a lot of different root causes of things for libido. A lot of these root causes are also things that are driving depression, right? The chemical imbalances, the hormonal imbalances, the gut imbalances. So that's coming up. That's a really, really great way of getting a quick 3-week, 21-day jumpstart into getting some of these root causes handled, as well as ideas on how to talk to your partner about it. So those are some ideas, those are some thoughts. Like, we got to get to some of those root causes. We got to kind of separate the fact that yes, there is this chemical thing going on, but then there's also something driving it, and really begin to find that driver while really helping a partner know that it's not about them, unless of course it truly is. And then of course we want to tell them that too. But check out my video on conscious communication on this channel too, because I talk about the how, the when, the what, the where of how to have these difficult kind of conversations if we need to tell our partner, hey, I'm kind of depressed because of something about our relationship. That's always a really important thing to acknowledge as well. Like, what is your thought process with the depression, right? Are you stuck and you locked in these thought process? And sometimes we can be depressed because we're in a situation that feels like it's overwhelming, it's not healthy, and we feel powerless to change it. So the more we can start to understand, okay, chemicals, as well as situational, as well as what our thoughts are going on, the more we can start to break this down and start to reverse it. So please leave your comments. I can make subsequent videos if you guys have questions on, on this to help clarify anything. And please do subscribe and share this with your friends if this would be helpful. Thanks again for listening. See you in the next one.